Hello and welcome to our third video. This video is all about how to do your literature search. Let's just take a step back and remind ourselves what a literature review is. A literature review is a piece of work, an activity, where your aim is to answer a research question by finding, selecting, analyzing, evaluating, and bringing together or synthesizing the available literature on your chosen topic. It is similar to a research project, but instead of collecting your own data to answer your research question, you are gathering the results of existing studies. As with any research endeavor, a literature review starts with a definition of a clear research question. If you want some tips on how to write one, please watch our previous video on research questions. There are different types of literature review that you could produce, so always check with your assignment guide which one you are required to do. So today we will focus on the first step of the literature review, which is finding the literature to answer your research question. You do that through an activity called literature search. To start with, it is important to decide where you're going to conduct your search, so which database or databases you're going to use to search for literature. There are many databases out there, and in many cases, your course leaders will tell you which databases you're going to use for your literature search. And again, always check your assignment requirement. It is important to know that different databases have different rules around how to input your search, how to write the search terms to maximize your chances of finding all the literature you need. So always familiarize yourself with their guides on how to best use each database. So I will not focus on a specific one, on a specific database, but I will give you general hints and tips and use an example as usual, and always encourage you to ask yourself questions. So first of all, let's start from a research question that we have identified. So we have decided that our research question will be, what midwifery-led interventions are associated with effective pain management during childbirth? So the first thing we need to do when starting a literature search is to break down our research question into smaller chunks. In this case, we will have three main search chunks or blocks. 1, midwife or midwifery-led. 2, pain management. 3, childbirth. My suggestion would be to leave out generic words like intervention, as a word like intervention might produce a lot of extra findings that might not be relevant, or worse, it could restrict your search too much and remove studies that are relevant but perhaps do not spell out the term intervention in their title or abstract. So once you have identified the main blocks of your search, you need to consider the possible synonyms and relevant terms for each of the blocks. These are also called keywords. Your goal here is to find as many relevant studies as possible, but as little irrelevant studies as possible. In research jargon, your search needs to be both sensitive, so it needs to be able to correctly identify the research studies that you need, the relevant ones, and specific. It needs to exclude the non-relevant studies. For example, for the term pain management, you could also include terms like pain reduction, pain control, pain relief. These would make your search sensitive. It would ensure that you are capturing all the studies that you need around the topic. For it to be specific, though, you probably need to avoid terms like analgesia or anesthesia, because while they have to do with pain and pain management, they mostly refer to medical intervention, and that is not the focus of your search. You're interested in midwifery-led interventions. So for childbirth, for example, you might also consider labor as a search term. And I'm going to give you a tip here. Whenever I'm doing a literature search, I always check existing reviews on the topic to see what search terms they used, because I might find that I have forgotten some. But again, a crucial point is always ask yourself what it is that you're really interested in when thinking about your search terms. Before combining your terms, it is worth checking whether any of your terms map to any subject headings in the database where you are conducting your search. A subject heading is like a tag that is attached to a paper to describe what it is about. In each database, you can search for subject headings specifically and then add them to your search strategy. For example, there are many keywords that refer to pain management, like we saw earlier, but in each database, there will be one subject heading only, for example, pain management as a subject heading. And at this point, you might think, great, I will only use subject headings. Who needs to think and worry about all those terms and synonyms and keywords? But sadly, not all topics, especially the more recent topics or concepts, may not be included in the list of subject headings of all databases. It's also important to remember that each database uses a different vocabulary, so a subject term in one database is not going to be exactly the same in another database. My tip is to make sure your search combines your own search terms, so your keywords, and subject headings. Once you are certain that you have identified all the search terms for each of your search blocks, you combine all the terms within a block with OR. By doing that, you make sure that you find any study that contains any of your search terms in that line with OR. You then combine the different blocks with the term AND. This ensures that you find only the studies that contain all the search blocks. For example, we want to find and search only studies that have to do with pain management, midwifery, and childbirth simultaneously. So our final search might look like something like this. First block, for example, pain management or pain reduction or pain control or pain relief or pain management as a subject heading, and midwife or midwifery or midwives or midwifery as a subject heading, and childbirth or childbirth or labor or childbirth as a subject heading. I would like to now give you a few more tips that can help you optimize your search strategy. First of all, you should keep your search terms on different lines and combine them together at the end. This helps you to see which terms yield too many or too little results, and therefore consider if some of your terms are too unspecific or too narrow. I also recommend having a look at wildcards, as they can make your search easier. There will be different wildcards in different databases, so always double check the help pages in all databases. One example is truncation. Usually it is through an asterisk, and this allows you to include various word endings. For example, you could search for midwife and then an asterisk, and that should capture terms like midwife, midwifery, midwives. Another example is when you have alternative spellings, for example, English versus American spelling. In each database, again, you will have a wildcard that you can place in the word and make it replace any character. For example, the term labor, instead of writing labor or labor, you could write labor R. And that will find both terms, labor and labor, with the alternative spellings. So do you want to know how our search performed? So I have just tried it in one database and it yielded just above 500 papers, so not too bad. I guess it's still manageable for a literature review project, and there is probably enough good material in there to find an answer to your question. But if you want to narrow it down even more, you could consider adding another search block, for example, about home birth, if you're interested is only in interventions delivered at home. But when I did add home, for example, to our search, it brought the results down to just about 50. As always, I'm not going to tell you how many papers should a good search find. It really depends on your topic. There's not a magic number. If your topic is very specific, narrow, and not widely researched, then you will not expect to find a lot of papers. But if it is a widely researched topic, then finding many papers is to be expected. What matters the most is that your search can identify the relevant papers and can answer your question. That is what really matters the most. In our next episode, we will look at how to apply inclusion and exclusion criteria to select the relevant papers and how to synthesize findings from included papers. Thank you for watching.